Massive changes for the 2025 NASCAR schedule, including massive playoff changes, are coming next year. What's the good, what's the bad, and what's your opinion? Let's break it all down today on Shifting Gears.
High, push it, checker flag, hell yeah!
What's the caution for? Me?
Can they not push it in?
Stop anybody.
Come on, he's going! Way to go, boys! One hell of a job, man, one hell of a job. Thank you so much.
Oh, there is so much to get into with this. Welcome on into Shifting Gears. I'm Alan Bailey. We have a lot to talk about with this new NASCAR 2025 schedule. Nothing is official. Nothing has been signed yet. NASCAR is still negotiating, but we will go ahead and talk about the proposed changes and at the moment what the 2025 schedule actually looks like. But before we get into it, make sure that you mash that subscribe button so that you do not miss a video. And of course, log on to arnrace.com for the latest motorsports news. ARN, the Motorsports Authority. So let's just go ahead and start right off the gate. The Athletics' Jordan Bianchi dropped another Bianchi bomb on the teardown Sunday night. And I had heard these rumors. I had heard that this was happening, but there's been about 50 other things that were happening with the playoff schedule for next year, and the schedule's never finalized until it is finalized. So I all just kind of took it with a grain of salt and thought, okay, well, these are some of the changes. We'll see what actually sticks. And keep in mind, this schedule is not official, super unofficial. Things could change, things could morph, dates could shift left and right. We're 100% unsure of this. But at the moment, right now, it looks like NASCAR is still talking to Mexico City and Montreal respectfully, and the promoters of those racetracks in those cities, with the potential of NASCAR taking the Cup Series either north, south, or north and south of the border for an international race in 2025. This is something that was in the works for this year, and it kind of fell through with Montreal. NASCAR entered discussions late last year with Mexico City, and those are actually going extraordinarily well, and it's looking more and more likely that we are going south of the border next year for the NASCAR Cup Series. North of the border, for some reason, is taking interesting twists and turns and legality issues. It's a whole thing. And the entire schedule more or less hinders on which one of these two international cities, if not both of them, are getting a date in 2025. At the moment, Mexico City is winning the bet, but again, we'll have to wait to see. Now, looking at the playoffs, we heard that 3 tracks are coming out and 3 tracks are going in. A lot of the changes we saw for this season, 2024, came about simply because of the Olympics. The Olympics threw a massive monkey wrench in the entire NASCAR schedule because of needing those 2 weeks off for NBC to broadcast the Olympics. And let's be blunt here, this is a great opportunity for NASCAR. You don't want to go up against the Olympics. You're not going to win that battle at all. And it also gives the teams essentially 2 weeks off, not at the racetrack, which is so desperately needed. It is not even funny. I've been arguing for more off dates during the regular season and a shorter schedule for a while, and this kind of checks both boxes. It checks one box, actually, not both boxes, but it does help the teams and the drivers and the crew members of these organizations to basically catch their breath, because that has been a massive issue for teams in the past. Now, actually looking at which tracks are coming out, which tracks are going in, the Southern 500 in Darlington going back into the playoffs in 2025, opening the playoffs. This is something that NASCAR's happy with. The Southern 500's happy with. It falls on Labor Day weekend, which is its historic date. I love that it's back in there. It should have been in there this year, but because of moving things around, because of the Olympics, it was forced out. Still weird that that's the cutoff race this year, but I'm glad that it's opening the playoffs next year. Now, the other racetrack that is in, this one blows me away. New Hampshire. And I know everybody's riding the high that we saw the rain race over the weekend. Oh, it was actually pretty good. Oh, this is really good. Oh, this is like the new Fontana. That argument is completely stupid and ignorant, and I'm not even going to acknowledge that concept that New Hampshire is as good as Fontana was at the 2 mile, not even close. And you had to literally throw rain tires on it and rain in order to make it good. Fontana, the 2 mile track, was good all on its own. I question this. This race has never been good. Sincerely, other than this last weekend when we threw rain on it, when has New Hampshire ever been a good race? Never. It's never produced a good race, ever. It's always been fuel mileage. It's always been strategy. It's always been, frankly, boring. And I would point back to Jeff Burton leading literally every single lap when we first raced out there back in the 90s for the first race as being proof that this racetrack has never been competitive. The area deserves a better layout of a track. It deserves better, frankly. And yes, we should have a race up there, but does it need to be in the playoffs? No, not really. This is just NASCAR moving things around, trying to accommodate for weather, frankly. And I don't know if this is necessarily a good move, but it is moving into the playoffs. Atlanta is moving out. Again, Atlanta was put in there essentially because of the Summer Olympics situation with the schedule. I'm okay with that. We don't need 2 super speedways in the playoffs. With that in mind, Watkins Glen moving out of the playoffs next year. I'm okay with this because the Glen was actually put in there, same reason, to more or less move things around and accommodate that 2-week break. I like the idea of the Glen hopefully going back to its summer date. I really, really, really like that. I like that track being kind of a run into the playoffs. It adds a little bit of drama in those last few weeks of the regular season going into the postseason. And the thing that I really like is the fact that putting it back in the summer allows this race to be what it was for fans in that area. Kind of a summer vacation camping kind of weekend for fans in the New York area. I'm very down for that. Another track that's moving out of the playoffs for next year, Homestead, Miami. In a word. Honestly, I'm not down for this. I love Miami. Honestly, that track is phenomenal, and it proves that kind of progressive banking is the thing that puts on really good racing for NASCAR. And I'm not down for this one. I mean, I don't like the fact that Homestead's moving out. I'm hearing the entire reason that this happened was essentially because of weather. They want another warm weather race, essentially to replace Fontana, because now we only have 2 West Coast races. Add Sonoma in there, in my opinion. Add Sonoma to one of the first 5 races of the year. If it rains, put the rain tires on it. Let's go out and have some fun on a green racetrack instead of when it's dead and dirt in the summertime out there in Northern California. But Homestead, Miami, on the other hand, the track is great. The on-track racing product is phenomenal. Some of the best we have in NASCAR, and I'd argue some of the best we have in the United States, period, as far as on-track racing. However, the facilities are very outdated, and they do not deserve to be the finale. That's the big push that Homestead Miami is pushing. The city is really pushing for that to be the season finale championship race, and I agree that the on-track racing does deserve to be at that racetrack. However, internet access, updated fan zone, updated media center, updated garage area. All of these things need to happen in order to better accommodate fans and put on a better event. It's 2024. If you do not have high-speed internet at your sporting venue, if you do not have state-of-the-art everything at your sporting venue, you are failing. That is the industry standard right now. When you look at every sporting facility right now across the NFL, NBA, MLB, they are all going through an upgrade with their facilities. Football and the NFL have done the best job, arguably, with updating their stadiums to 2020-plus status with, working internet and suites and better hospitality and these things. And yes, it is a smaller footprint, but these are the things that need to happen across the board with NASCAR. I'd argue literally the only racetrack that doesn't need to severely update their fan zone is probably Phoenix. And that's the reason that Phoenix is still the championship finale, because they actually can not only accommodate fans, but they actually have an updated sporting venue that has been updated in the last 5 years. It needs to happen across the board, and Homestead Miami needs to do that. More than likely, Homestead is going to be added to the March-April kind of part of the schedule, that early part of the schedule, which I'm okay with, honestly. It's going to be a pretty damn good little race. It always is a good race out there, but I'd argue it's time for Homestead to get a second date, one in the regular season early on and one in the postseason, because it is a really phenomenal racetrack, but again, need to update those facilities before we move forward. The other track that is going into the playoffs in place of Homestead, and this one's got me shaking my head a little bit, Gateway. The area is great. The racing there is, and I'm saying this with no offense intended, fine. It's not good. It's not bad. It's fine. And I do think the area does deserve that race. They do deserve a playoff date just because of the city. However, again, I don't think the facilities are necessarily the best. They've made some improvements, but again, need to upgrade a little bit more. Need to add some seating because what does that place hold now? 50,000, 75,000? That's nothing for a playoff race. And yes, I get it. Having a sellout at Gateway and having 50,000 people in the stands is awesome. Ooh, good for you. But then when we don't have a sellout at the LA Memorial Coliseum, which holds 200,000 people, we're suddenly really angry. I don't get it. Like, sellouts across the board are great, don't get me wrong, but when your facility holds a third of other sporting facilities, a sellout at Gateway is not the same as a sellout at Daytona, Indianapolis, the LA Coliseum, what have you. Again, this place needs to add seats. They need to better accommodate the fans, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Speaking of the LA Memorial Coliseum, another big change, they will not be having the Clash at the LA Coliseum this year, unfortunately. That sucks for me because I'm not that far from the LA Coliseum, and honestly, I'm okay with it. I think that the event has kind of run its course a little bit. It behooves me for it to come back to LA because it's literally a hour drive from my house, give or take. But at the same time, I think it's time to move on because people in LA at that time were talking about football, were thinking about football, not really thinking about racing. And this was always a PR stunt orchestrated by Fox because Fox's headquarters is essentially right across the street. They wanted this, and that's fine, honestly. The event did have merit. It did have some of its good moments, but I think it goes back to the fact that NASCAR wants this event to kind of kickstart the season, create some highlights and drama early before the big game, aka the Super Bowl, and actually create some hype around the season. And the Clash being in Daytona for years was fine. However, we've kind of gone past that. We've kind of gotten to the point where the racing at Daytona wasn't really worth it with this next-gen car. The road course didn't really work. Fans didn't show up because, let's be honest, would you rather pay to watch a non-points, nothing, who cares race a couple weeks before literally the biggest race of the year, or would you rather buy a seat to literally the biggest race of the year? Not really a competition there. So I get why NASCAR needs to move this out of Daytona. The word on the street right now is that it's moving to Bowman Gray Stadium in North Carolina. I'm fine with that. It creates a little bit of history, goes to a historic venue. I question what the show would look like. I question how many people can you actually get around that track. And I'm sincerely asking, is it 10,000, 20,000 if you bring in seats? Those are my thoughts on the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series schedule and the proposed changes that are coming to the schedule. What do you think about Atlanta, Watkins Glen, all coming out of, and Homestead, Miami coming out of the postseason? But more importantly, what do you think about Gateway, New Hampshire, and Darlington going back into the playoffs? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're there, make sure that you mash that subscribe button so that you do not miss a video. And of course, log on to arnrace.com for the latest motorsports news. ARN, the Motorsports Authority. Want to thank you so much for watching. For Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. We'll see you at the track.